Hello everybody. Dr. Bassam Abu Abdallah teaches in Damascus University Faculty of Political Sciences. He is also advisor to Minister of Information. He was a diplomat at the Syrian embassy in Ankara between 2004 and 2008. He is also a columnist for Syrian daily newspaper Al-Watan and Turkish newspaper Aydınlık. He speaks Arabic, Russian, English and a little Turkish. Hello, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, terrorists from 83 countries of all around the world are fighting in Syria. Turkey, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are supporting, funding and arming them. Why?
This is a very important question, and I think many, especially in the Western audience, they don't know why, what's going on inside Syria, why this war against Syria, because the Western countries and these countries represent the situation in Syria as a confrontation between a government and opposition. This is one. The second thing, that when you are reading the Western media, you will notice that they are using the terminology of civil war. Mm-hmm. In Syria, there is no civil war. There is maybe part of Syrian people participating and fighting against the government, but they are under what they call it opposition in the Western media or either Western leaders. But generally, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey, I am seeing that they are instruments in the hands of big powers like United States, Europe and others. And under this, the big power, there is targets for themselves. Example, in Turkey, they are looking for a new Ottoman project, which I think is failed already, and there is no way for this project. The American project, what they call it, to make harmony between Islam and democracy, started with the Arab Spring. They started from the North Africa to the Middle East. The last battle was in Syria. Because of that, we can see terrorists from 83 countries. Because if we will speak about democracy in Syria, let's take Saudi Arabia. If it's a democratic regime or democratic state, absolutely no. They have constitution? No. Qatar, the same. I cannot see that Qatar is a regional player. I looking to Qatar as a cashier more than a regional player who will compare its capabilities with other countries in the region. But Turkey is a member of NATO. Turkey is looking to join Europe. But why Turkey became the center for all these terrorist organizations and all these Muslim Brotherhood movements? Because Turkey was the reference, and Turkey was a model for the Middle East by American representation of Turkey, that the AK party or the ruling party in Turkey, they are representing the model, Islam and democracy. While we can see now in Turkey it's a dictatorship, as Europeans they are talking about Turkey. So I think I will not talk about conspiracy, maybe some people they don't like that, but this is a plan to what we can, or to reoccupy the region again on behalf of another terminology, democracy, human rights and freedoms, which started in Iraq 2003 after occupation of Iraq from United States, and after that with the Arab Spring, which we could nightmare. It's not a Arab Spring. So because of that, these states, especially Saudi Arabia, this is not first time. Historically, in the 18th of the past century, the United States CIA with a Saudi families, they made at that time a deal to combat or to fight against the communists at that time, Soviet Union. And this deal continuing now through ISIS and Nusra and other terrorist groups, because I cannot understand a small country like Qatar can play this a big role without supporting from outside, or Saudi Arabia, it has its plan, because Saudi Arabia, what they can give us in Syria? Democracy, human rights, civilization, nothing. So it's sometimes you can maybe laughing when you are listening to some Saudi officials when they are talking about democracy in Syria or transition period in Syria, or who will rule Syria, President Bashar al-Assad or others, something you can laugh. And either the Western countries, sometimes they are not convinced in that. And in Western media, you can read the last time, recently, many articles in Guardian or Independent or in New York Times before the last visit of King Salman, a lot of critics about Saudi family and its practice. But anyway, I think this is the smell of oil in for the West. Is Thomas Friedman. He said that we are looking for the smell of oil, and because of that we are closing our eyes in front of practices of Saudi Arabia. Anyway, why they came, there is a plan. Because nobody can convince me or any other people that how these people came from around more than 83. Ban Ki-moon, the General Secretary of United Nations, he recognized that there is more, either he said 100 states, everyone. But now how they came to Syria without organization, this work, through multi-intelligence agencies, nobody can come from Chechen, from the center of Asia, from France, from United Kingdom, from Australia, Canada, so we can see about the whole world coming. And the main important thing that between this multinational terrorist group, this is a very dangerous orientation, because when you have these multinational terrorist groups or organization, it means they will, when they will come back or go back to their country, this is the more dangerous thing for their societies. So because of that, we are talking in Syria that the Western societies will pay very high price because they made historical, strategic wrong towards Syria. So this is part of the whole plan to the region. The instrument in this plan is to make the war in the region. It's a Sunni Shi'i war first. It's a war between different religions, but especially in Islam. Because of that, you can see that where is Christian people in Syria or in Iraq, they are making them to go outside of Syria or outside of Iraq, while we are as Syrian proud of Christianity, because Christian religion, it was born in Syria. It was not born in Europe. It was part of our heritage, it's a part of our history, it's a part of our traditions. So the most important churches you can see in Damascus, or the most important monastery, it's in Damascus. So I think this is a part of plan to divide our society, to make us fight each other between ethnic or religious groups, Sunni, Shi'i. While in Syria, I think the Syrian people, they could escape from this trap. Because maybe Syrian people, they were not a lot. The history of Syria, it's a multinational, and we used to be with each other. You are, as I know, you are Armenian, and you are a Syrian citizen, and we have thousands of Armenian, or we have different ethnic and religious groups. So I think this is part of plan, and the Syrian people paid very high price to protect this harmony between the people, and to defend the sovereignty of Syria and the freedom of beliefs of the people. Because sometimes when I'm hearing to some Western media that, or either the last discussion in Vienna about Syria, the most important points, which is sometimes laughing, that all states decided that Syria should be secular and unified state. When you are thinking about secular, so Syria was a secular, and we are protecting secular state, and all the Syrian Arab army is protecting the secular state. We are not. We are against the project which wanted to bring to the Syrian people, which is including extremism, the language of hate and violence, which came from Wahhabism. It's not producing inside Syria.
Doctor, all of Syrian army's operations against terrorists are important, but are there some strategic?
Sometimes I am not a military person who can talk about that, but from my understanding and from my sometimes meeting with some military officers, you know that the Syrian command of, or the general command of the Syrian army put priorities which can divide between two options. The strategic priorities, it's from the first year, because we knew in Syria that this war is long. It's not 1 year or 2 years. Because of that, some people talking either in Western media or Arab media that the Syrian regime, as they call it, looking for a beneficial Syria. What we mean in there is whole Syria is beneficial, but in this kind of war, which the fourth generation of wars, when they use this kind of terrorist groups with open borders, with logistic support, with a huge money, with media, because ISIS have a very developed media. From where this came, not from our media, but it's from Hollywood. So we should ask the American who is behind this media. In this kind of war, I think the Syrian political leadership and the Syrian officers generally who are planning for this war with our allies, who are not alone here in this war, they put the first priorities, the main cities like Damascus, Aleppo, the strategic ports, the strategic roads, where is the oil and gas, where is the electricity stations, mainly to provide the people in possibility of living the minimum level of living. So they put these priorities. But nowadays, when we are seeing the whole map, there are strategic battles, including now the southeast of Aleppo or southwest of Aleppo. This is important. I think the main battle now in the Syrian, it's Aleppo. Aleppo is, this is the final target of the Syrian army and its allies. We are speaking openly. I mean here Russia, and I mean here Iranian and Hezbollah and other, and our defense forces, which including here the young people who wanted to protect with its army the sovereignty of Syria and fight against terrorism. So this is, and there is a strategic other battles in the south, but all these battles generally is tactically and strategically is coordinated in one operational room. Sometimes we are going ahead because we are not confronting as they called a terrorist organization. It's well equipped terrorist organization. They have Western telecommunication. They have satellite channels where they are getting information. We are in front of a terrorist organization who has a very modern technology with American weapons. And either United States, they know that all the weapons they are sending to what they call it moderate opposition, at the end of the day, they are these weapons transforming to al-Nusra or ISIS, they call it. So I think the priorities now is changing from year to year, but now we are entering, I think, the strategic battles, which including especially in the north. I mean here Aleppo, and here the role of Turkey again is very dangerous and the more dangerous. So we will see that the political process is going parallel with what's going on on the ground, because at the end of the day, I think everything is clear more now. Nobody can say that in Syria there is civil war. Nobody say that there is opposition fighting against the government. There is international terrorism. And that the people, they should know that when we are speaking about international terrorism, there is three resolutions issued from the Security Council of United Nations: 2170, 2179, and 2199. And it's under the Charter number 7 in the Charter of United, Article number 7 in the Charter of United Nations. And I think under this article, all regional states, all the states members of United nations, they should cut their finance, logistics support, but I'm sorry to tell you that it's only on the papers. Nobody take these resolutions into consideration. But anyway, I think the situation is more clear for many people in the world, and nobody can ignore that the Syrian government is fighting against terrorism.
We say Syria's future will be decided by the Syrians themselves. Neither countries nor politicians will decide instead of the Syrians. Do you agree?
No, absolutely. Nobody will agree with that, because what we can see that either if we will take the Geneva I declaration, which was issued in 30 of June 2012, it was between America and Russia at that time. And it's reflecting the situation on the ground in Syria, militarily. But after that, it was not to succeed. Geneva II or in Switzerland, the meetings, it was not succeed. Why? Because the West created opposition from outside Syria, and they wanted to tell us that this is the only representative of the Syrian people, which is not. Nobody knows these people. They make a mixture between who is loyal to Qatar, who is loyal to Saudi Arabia, France, Britain, America, Israel, I don't know, whatever, Turkey. So these people were working as agents. They are not opposition. And in this, when we are talking about there is many disinformation in terminology. Terminology is very important. Example, we until now speaking about Syrian crisis. What kind of crisis? It's war. It's war against the Syrian people. It's war against the Syrian state. So we are speaking about the war against Syria or Syrian crisis. We didn't make crisis for anyone. If we have some internal problems, we are recognizing that. We are not saying that Syria is the best country in the world and we are a democratic state and we don't need the freedoms or we don't need more flexibility for the people. Absolutely, either the President Assad, he recognized many times about that. But how we should build that, this is another way. Who will decide, especially when your question about the last meeting in Vienna, either Geneva is already died. Nobody talking about Geneva 1 or 2 or 3 or I don't know whatever. Now we are speaking about Vienna 1 now. But what's interesting that all these 16 countries deciding what is the principles of solving problem in Syria. But the problem not between Syrians only. This is not between Syria as a state, Syrian people, and Turkey as a regional state who wants to expand its Islamic Ottoman, new Ottoman project and to realize it on behalf to serve the whole American project in the region. We have a problem with Saudi Arabia who wanted to bring to Syria a Wahhabism, which I know the whole West knows that this is the modern democratic movements in the history. And I am something amazing when Saudi Arabia or that. But anyway, the principles which they are talking about, the American, Russian, who are led this meeting, and Iran participating. I think the Russian is convinced more that without bringing all these players into a one whole, it's difficult to solve the Syrian problem. So because of that, they are going the Russian and American step by step, but they are looking to the military situation. So the two sides, two camps is working in political process. They put some principles generally after this meeting. But one of them principles that the Syrian, either the Geneva, they talked about that Syrian they will solve. And if there are some countries speaking about the elections, okay, parliamentary or presidential elections. So who will vote for these elections? Who will vote in these elections? The Syrian people. And the Syrian people are the only power who can solve. The American, I think, start to recognize that. Russian, they from the first step they declared that. Iranian, they are playing. China, because this is a principle, is not concerned to the, or not concerning only the Syrian crisis or the Syrian people. It's generally it's a principle. Either we should respect, or either we will be in a jungle life in international community, and the strong state will eat the small one. So I think the Russian, the Chinese, the new BRICS, the new power rising now in the world is trying to do that, especially because Syria is a model for these multinational, multi-regional, international conflicts. And why Syria, it's a big question. And a lot of people don't know why this war in Syria, and if it's internal conflicts, or it's regional conflicts, or it's international conflicts. Syria is a model for what kind of Middle East we need in the future. And I think one of the principles in the region that people should decide their future. And I think it will be more convinced to European when they are talking, or American, because if you are speaking about democracy, the source of legality for any regime, it's a people. It's not America, it's not Russia, not Tehran, not Turkey. Yesterday we had elections in Turkey. So why the Turkey has the right, why they have the right to decide their future, while the Syrian, they don't have to decide that. So I think this is, without Syrian people, nothing will happen. Either the leadership of Syria, I mean President Assad, or the government, they are talking all about any political solution. We'll talk with opposition, or any political process. At the end of the day, we will go to the referendum, because people, the only power who can decide in Syria.
Do you think that stopping violence in Syria, and later the Syrian refugees returning back to their homes, is a prelude to any kind of democracy, or any talk of democracy?
No, I think the refugees, they are results of international terrorism. So here Europe is paying the price of its planned policies towards Syria. America is very far, but Europe is very close to Syria. And when, if they didn't expect that these refugees will come to Europe, I think they are not understand what's going on. And I think we could see that Europe is, here is not, they didn't talk a reality about what's going on inside Syria. Many politicians in France now, in Britain, we are starting to listen. Why? To listen in new language. They are being now more human, in humanitarian side, but they are, I think, they are not. If they are very human being, they should stop the sanctions against the Syrian people. From the first day in 2011, they started to put sanctions against the people. It reflects on our level of life. It reflects of the infrastructure. Nobody talked about what's going on inside Syria. So they are guilty of what's going on inside Syria. They should pay the price, because you cannot expect that you will support or either close your eyes on terrorism, and at the end of the day you will not, the fire will not achieve your hope. It's absolutely not right. So I think at the end of the day, the refugees will go back to their country, and this is their right. Any Syrian, he should. But what kind of country we should rebuild this country, or the old Syrian? I am here not speaking about who is loyal, who is opposition, which some media divided us in Syria between loyal to the government and against the government. This is not the truth. I'm saying that I am loyal to my country, and I'm against any wrongs in and I can't criticize my government. I can't criticize inside Syria. So there is no that kind of democracy in the world, which is as they talked in the boxes, or as they are showing us in the Western media. This is not the story. The story that democracy, it's a path to build better life for the people. If it's not, it's not ballot box. It's not only to vote for this leader or that leader, but what kind of program they will represent for us in political level, in economic level, and in social level. Without that, I don't think that why the election is needed if this party or that party will not develop the level of the people economically or in social life or in education. While in 2010, by the way, if anyone will take the figures in Syria in education, in health, in developing economic development in Syria, or in all fields of economy, we were going up. So one of the reasons, maybe, I don't know exactly, but maybe one of the reasons that if we will leave Syria as independent state and going up in industry, agriculture, and its independent policy, it's very dangerous because it's not under the umbrella of the West. So the whole plan against Syria is to take Syria from its independent policy, foreign policy, to the Western one, to make a government in Syria as a toy, like in the Gulf states, or how the West, while the Syrian, not only President Assad, as they talked, the whole history of the modern Syria after the independence, the Syrian is very sensitive to their independence and sovereignty. It's not relevant to only the President Bashar al-Assad. If you will take all Syrian leaders through history of Syria, they are well sensitive. And this sensitivity is relevant to the Syrian people who are sensitive. They respect the others. They want the foreign policy of Syria is very balanced. And Syrian is diplomatically, logically. They don't have aggressive foreign policy towards the regional states. But we are supporting here the resistance movement in the region. We are against American hegemony policy, foreign policy, which the American criticized that. President Obama came to the war because they want to withdraw America from these dirty wars, which was in Iraq or Afghanistan. So generally, I think, I hope that Syria will come back, and I am optimistic in that. But I think what the Arab countries, regional countries, and either international community, what they made in Syria, they will write a lot. It's a very dirty war. It's a crime against not only Syrian people. It's a crime against our heritage, against our society, and against the harmony between the people, because Syria is a model for, I think, for the whole world.
Yes. Doctor, Iran has been trying to solve the Syrian crisis through political ways since the very beginning, while many other countries have not. Why? Because
Iran, I think, it's a stable player. It's a player of looking for stability in the region. They tried to show Iran during more than 30 years that it's a hegemony power and it's a Shi'i power who want to control the Sunni countries. They wanted to show Iran like that. This is not reality. Iran, a very important state in the region. Iran, not only Islamic state, it's a Persian civilization. And I think and I think the West and America tried to stop the progress in Iran, but they couldn't. At the end of the day, they sit around the table and they decided the nuclear file in diplomatic way, and it was the model for Syria. If you could solve this problem, a very complicated file, in diplomatic way, it means we can solve what's going on inside Syria, this war, to stop this war and to stop this terrorism against the Syrian people in diplomatic way. So Iran, from the first day, the Iranian received not only they had already good relations with the Syrian government, but they received all kind of opposition. They talked to the Syrian opposition that you should go to the dialogue with the government and you should, as a Syrian, to decide your problems, and Iran supported elections in Syria, and until now Iran is seeing that there is only way. The Syrian people, they will decide themselves through parliamentary election, presidential elections, there is no problem. But only the Syrian people. Nobody can talk on behalf of the Syrian people. While the others, because the conflict in the region it's already seen. There is America in one camp with Europe, or not all Europe, some Western countries, mainly Britain and France, with some instruments like Saudi Arabia, the Gulf money. And because the Gulf states, you know, that is a market for the factory of weapons in the United States and France and other Western countries. They are taking money from it's a bank more than a allies, they call it. And this project is felt to bring a Muslim Brotherhood to control the whole region. It fell into because of the resistance of the Syrian people, because it was a domino effect. After Tunisia, then Egypt, Libya, then Syria. In Syria, we resist this project. We are not ready to leave a Muslim Brotherhood to control in Syria, because we are what we can call it's a multi-identity in Syria. We have ethnic groups, we have a religious group, while the Muslim Brotherhood is speaking on behalf of the religion. Nobody has the right to take religions under his to put the religion or Quran inside his pocket and to talk on behalf of the all Muslim people. So this was a resistance of the Syrian people generally. While Iran, nobody can say that Iran has no targets in the region. The targets of Iran, it's that to keep these strategic relations with Syria. This is not a new relations. We had more than 35 years strategic relations with Iran. We were because we used our relations with Iran in the past to have a balance between the Gulf states and Iran all the time. Syria played important role in this. But I think logically now Iran important player after the signing of nuclear agreement. Now nobody can ignore Iran. Iran more integrated with the Western countries. Many Western foreign ministers visiting Iran. Iran is a stable, is a country which wants stability in the region, and it's important player. While Saudi Arabia is disturbing the whole region through the war in Yemen, through financing terrorism in Syria or in Iraq. So why the others? Because maybe I think Saudi is afraid from Iran because they are undeveloped state. Usually, when you have a state like Iran is developing in technology, science, and in everything, and you are seeing that you are living in the middle centuries, maybe you will be afraid from the effect of this uprising country in front of the middle age, I think, countries. I think now, at the end of the day, Iran is approaching the normal and logic approach to the Syrian crisis. Now Russia is supporting that, China is supporting that, more Western countries in Europe talking about that.
China rejected any kind of violence from any source, calling on all parties to hold comprehensive national dialogue. Why do just a few countries call for dialogue?
Because I think, as I have told you now, the world in a very, in my opinion, in a very historical turning point. Now we are in front of a new uprising state. It's, I think the president of China, he declared in the last General Assembly of United Nations that there is a new world order, and that China will participate in financing the peace forces for United Nations in $1 billion, and they will participate in that. This is first time when China is producing this kind of policy, foreign policy. President Putin, he declared in the principles which Russia is following, the principles of international law, international, the Charter of United Nations, Charter of United Nations, and the respect of sovereignty of the state and not interfering in the internal affairs of the state. This is the position of China, Iran, Russia, Brasilia, South Africa. We should all these uprising states, because otherwise, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, some American newcons, they think that they can control the whole world. I think either President Obama in his speech in the United Nations, the last in September, he recognized that America cannot be a police for the whole world. And this is a first recognition from American leader that America should cooperate with others to solve the problems in the world, because the world now is integrated with each other. We are not in front of ideological war like it was in the Cold War between communist and capitalism. Now the capitalism you can see in China, in Russia, there is the economic system. But while in political affairs we can see what kind of world we want for the future, how we will build our world. If we will continue like it was after the 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union, there is no American exceptionalism. America is a superpower, should cooperate with Russia, with China, with all states, regional states, to solve the problem. Otherwise, I think, the war will not producing any results for all parties, and to control the peoples in the region, or to make what the Russians say sociological engineering. You cannot bring American democracy to Afghanistan, example. This failed, but you can help the people to develop its democratic model. But you cannot control, on behalf of democracy, control the whole societies, the peoples, and you should put who is the president, who is the prime minister, and interfering if internal. So I think China here is reflecting not only the position of China. If you will compare, you will find the Russian position the same, the Iranian, a lot of member of BRICS and the new states, because if they will accept that on Syria, it means this example will go to other states or other problems. So I think more of the states in the world, they are close to this position nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Russia has supported the Syrian government since the crisis began in 2011 to bring peace. Would you please brief us on the Russian efforts?
I think the relations, many people, they are not speaking about the history. Then there is historical background between Syria and Russia. It's a very deep roots of relations. I graduated from Russia, my PhD from Russia, and thousands like me studied in the former Soviet Union. I am speaking about PhDs, masters, or engineers, doctors, and many specializations. Besides military, that our army is the weapons of our army is from the former Soviet Union and Russian Federation is first. Secondly, we have a very deep cultural relations with Russia. I am speaking about some reasons which many people are not speaking about, especially when we are speaking about Orthodox as a Christianity, as a part of, or as a what we can call it, the Orthodox was born in Syria. Orthodox came from Syria to Russia, not the opposite. Yes. So some people, some terrorist groups, when the Russians started their military operations in cooperation with the Syrian army, they talked about what they called invasion, Russian or Orthodox invasion. They are stupid. The Orthodox was born here. And we started to, we transformed the Orthodox to Russia. This is the second. The third, that Russia is looking for moderate Islam in Syria and don't want to support any kind of extremism, because Russia itself has 1 million of Muslims. And these Muslims, they don't want the Russian government to have extremism, because Russia historically suffered from terrorism during the war in Chechen in the 19th or the past century. The fourth reason for the Russian position, that Russia didn't change its position. From the first day, when they used the veto 4 times with China, the target was to prevent America, to stop America using the national security of the United Nations as a bridge to achieve its goals against Iraq, it was against Libya. So it's finished. Stop. Enough is enough. the Russian and Chinese said. The second thing that Russia said from the first day that we, at the end of the day, we need a political process, political solution. The Russian talked to all kind of opposition, like Iran. When we are talking about Iran, the same about Russia. But Russia has another interest in Syria, which is relevant to its strategic position on the Mediterranean Sea, where is the military base for Russia. Because if Russia will lose Syria, it will lose the whole Mediterranean, the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, and it's very dangerous for its national security. The fifth reason, which is very, very important, that the Russian, they declared that. President Putin, Minister Lavrov, Prime Minister Medvedev, they talked all about the dangers of terrorists here in Syria, that they are a danger for national security of Russia. Because if these terrorists will succeed in Syria against the Syrian government, it means they will go automatically through Turkey. Turkey is the bridge for all this extremism against Russia and China. In the future, they will go to the Caucasus and to Russia. And the President Putin said openly and frankly that we don't want to see these terrorists in our streets in Moscow or other Russian states. So there are different reasons behind this Russian. Besides that, which is very important, that Russian stressed about the priority of international law, because they didn't come to Syria without acceptance of Syrian government, and they tried to take a decision in the Security Council of United Nations, but there was a American veto. So they want the new world order to respect the international law. Without international law, we cannot live by American will or by American hegemony or by American interest. They want to stop. They want to bring American to respect the United Nations and international law. So they are talking about principles. Mainly, Russian, they talked many times when they talked about President Assad, that we are not interfering, that the only power in Syria, and they repeated that many, many times, and nobody understands sometimes. Like Saudis who want there many times, and they make a bargaining with the Russian president about the future of Syria, and he told them, it's not me who can decide, which is, you asked me the first question. Nobody, not Russian president, not American president, only the Syrian people. So this is the general, the main reasons behind the Russian support and of Syrian government. They are not supporting a person. The West or America talking that Russia supporting President Assad. Yes, they are supporting legal president who was elected in a free elections, and I think the whole world could see, and they shut their mouths when they saw the 7 kilometers of the Syrian citizens, not in Syria, in Lebanon, how they waited for voting. So nobody can talk about that they are, yes, they are supporting the legal president, and they are supporting the government, and they are supporting the government who fight against international terrorism. And either the Russian evaluated the resistance of the Syrian people for 4 years and a half. We are fighting against these terrorists, which they have a face of a human being, but I think they are close to what kind of crazy people or something not normal, because we paid as a Syrian very high price. So in this general general assessment, the Russian supporting. If we will go to the airstrikes, I think the American take 1 year in their, what they call it, the Western ally or alliance, and they felt at the end of the day ISIS is expanding. We couldn't see any targets. We couldn't see where is the targets. They are talking about thousands of airstrikes, but we couldn't see that where is the effect of these airstrikes on terrorist organizations. While the Russian, first of all, as we mentioned before, that they enter to help Syria on after the Syrian government asked this help. It's depending on international law. This is a very important step for Russia. The second thing that Russia is supporting only in air forces. There is no ground forces in Syria from Russia, only air forces. And the third thing that we could see the results of these airstrikes directly after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, while America, after 1 year, there is no results. So I think that Americans want to manage these terrorists, to manage the ISIS, and to use the ISIS and other terrorist groups as an instrument to divide, or to use them to support the American position in the political future of Syria or other countries, while the Russian is really targeting terrorists and really want to fight international terrorism. So I think we now 1 month after the starting of air strikes of Russian military of Russian army, I think that there is very good results, and they are supporting the ground operation of the Syrian army, and they declared that we will continue this operation until the Syrian army will achieve its targets. So there is the Russian involvement in cooperation with the Syrian government, Syrian army, is a new factor now. So it's changed a lot of position of players. They are not only in front of the Syrian government, they are in front of Russian Federation, they are in front of other players in the region who want to stop this violence, who want to stop this terrorism, not only for Syrian people who paid very high price, but for the stability in the region. Either if they will think, if they will put the ideological background of the players, like Saudi Arabia, Wahhabism, like Erdogan in Turkey, who is speaking on behalf of Sunni and sometimes on behalf of political goals of the new Ottoman project. These two models is failed. There is no way, no future for them. Either after the winning of elections in Turkey, the last elections in Turkey, there is no way for this project to continue. Through terrorism, you cannot build stability. Through terrorism, you cannot build prosperity for the people. Through terrorism, you cannot leave Turkey or leave the Turkish people living in a very good economic situation while the Iraqi or the Syrian is dying every day. You cannot think like that. This is a criminal thinking mentality. So I think the people after 4 years and a half, including now Russia, is supporting the Syrian government, is supporting the Syrian army, and will continue. And they didn't close. They didn't put. They declared their targets, the period of time, what they want to do, and what they are supporting. And at the same time, they are working in parallel, political process, and with a military. Because without combating terrorism, without destroying these terrorists, there is no political solution. There is no referendum. How you can make elections in Syria, in parliamentary or presidential or anything? How you can build economy? How you will the people? How these refugees will go back to their country? So there is no way without a combating terrorism. So because of that, I think Syria, Iran, Russia, China, something this orientation. Combating terrorism, this is first priority. Then we can go to any political solution, because between Syria there is no problem in some details.
Dr. Bassam Abou Abdallah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and goodbye.